Welcome to the Dingiston for a brand new comic club. Great to do one of these again. It's been a little bit since we've done one over a whole story arc, and joined by a special guest today to talk about Flash and Green Lantern Brave and the Bold. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Dingiston.
All right. Welcome in, Jordan from Soups and Sabers. Great to have you here to talk about a comic that you brought up to me because
Yeah.
we've been interacting a bit over on Twix, what I call Twitter / X, and so I reached out to you asking if you wanted to, come on here to talk about a comic, and you're like, yeah, I'll look through and give a few suggestions, and this was the first suggestion that you gave that caught my eye, and that is this story that I've never read until today. So is interesting. And so, I think there's a lot to talk about with the story, or stories, should we say, since, it was like 6 issues were each
Yeah.
kind of their own thing. And it's cool, it's, for the one of the reasons why I love the world of comics is there's so much to it that there's a bunch of stories that are like really good that I wouldn't naturally go find myself. And even though I'm a big Green Lantern fan, even though I really like Mark Waid as a writer,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't one of those stories that I was aware of that I was gonna like go read anytime soon. So I appreciate you bringing up something that wasn't on my radar at all. So that's cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and I'm really excited to talk about this. Actually, I also really like Mark Waid, so this was
Yeah.
I think it was a blind buy. Honestly, I just
Oh,
saw I have the deluxe edition of it
nice.
here, and this is it has a slipcover too, but um I just bought it because I really like Flash, and I thought it'd be cool to do it. And it was like 15. I think it was on sale for like $15 or less.
Well, you
So I
can't
was
beat
like,
that.
let's read it and see how it is. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a fun read, especially and I think I gave you like 3 Flash options because I was
Yeah.
reading a bunch of Flash because I, started my side project of Enter Flash Time, where we
Yeah.
talk the Arrowverse show of Flash, and every episode Barry appears in. So I was kind of in the Flash mood, so I gave you like
Big
3 Flash
valid.
options.
That's valid. Well, that's the thing is, the world of comics is so huge. There's a bunch of characters I like, but not a lot. You only have so much time to really delve into so
Right.
many characters, And so for me, I like Flash, but he's never been a character I've like really delved into.
Mhm.
And just because I've never given the time, because there's just so much to read out there. However, on the other hand, Green Lantern, specifically Hal Jordan, is my second favorite DC hero, right behind Batman. Deservedly so, I guess. So, but so I guess it's kind of funny how that works out, and probably the biggest reason why this option also stood out to me.
Yeah.
I mean, multiple reasons, obviously, as we mentioned. Mark Waid co-wrote it. I'm not familiar with the other writer on this.
Yeah.
What's his
His
name?
name is
Tom Payer.
Tom Payer or Pyre.
Yeah, however you say it.
Um,
I'm terrible at pronouncing names here,
Me
but
too. Don't worry about it.
oh, there we go. Other
And
talent.
Barry Kitson on the art, and
Yes.
I think one of my favorite parts of this is the art. I just think Barry
Mhm.
Kitson has a really great art style. It feels
Yeah.
very classic.
Uh-huh.
Like seeing the characters in their classic suits in his
Mhm.
style is just it just looks right, you know.
Yeah, that's a great place, I think, to begin of like exactly what this comic is. Is it, to my understanding, it doesn't necessarily retell stories, but it fills in holes between certain story things.
Yeah, this is what Mark Waid is so good at. He in this hardcover that I have here, it actually has a timeline, which is really
Yes.
interesting. And It has like this whole forward with them and everything, but this takes place shortly after Green Lantern 13 in 1962.
So yeah.
And March 1962 was Justice League 9, and they had a flashback in there about Flash and Green Lantern meeting. And so this takes place, not long after I guess they first meet. And then there's some more team ups that happen throughout the 60s. And then issue 2 happens shortly after Green Lantern 58, which was in 1968.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
and then like issue 3 takes place after Green Lantern 71, which was in 69. And then issue 4 takes place after Green Lantern 78, which is 1970. Um, and issue 5 was after Green Lantern 100 in 1978. And then issue 6, I guess, is after Green Lantern 129 in 1980. And as you see at the very end, right, leads into Crisis with the Red Skies.
Yes,
So
that was
uh,
great.
that's how they have. I think that's one thing Wade is really good at, is going through continuity and just picking out stuff. Like if
Mhm.
you've read his his World's Finest,
Mhm.
right now he's been doing that a lot, where it's filling in gaps of uh kind of like earlier times,
Yeah.
and he's just like the master of canon and continuity, and he has fun with like going through and being like, when you're reading these issues, you're seeing references to stuff that you're like, oh, like that probably happened, and it did. It's a fun reference he's throwing out in his issues, just from all of his research of this. And also, he wrote Flash not long after Crisis, when it was Wally West, so he probably had to do a lot of research
Mhm.
and to write Flash. And just a fun idea to have like these 6 stories kind of spread out throughout their whole friendship. Um, Released in
Yeah.
1999.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. Even though it reads like a comic that was written in the late 90s, it very much felt like a comic that was in the like 60s, 70s, and with each of those issues, which were cool. It was a lot of fun reading it, and you remember how different some of these characters' powers work
Yeah.
as you go through it. Green Lantern's ring doing different things, and not being able to, the color yellow being the weakness,
Right. Right.
and all this fun stuff. It very much felt like those older eras, even though it was written a little more recent from then. So
Yeah, it kind
there's
of felt like what I would say, like it fits into that time period, but also is a modern telling, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it feels like a modern comic book, but it also feels classic. Like it
yeah.
just feels like it fits into there.
Mhm.
Um, you have stuff like, I think Wally at one point says like "good gosh" or something. Like it
Yeah.
feels very, like, yes, that fits into those 60s
Mhm.
comics, but also um some of the themes and stuff I think go a little deeper, and some of his jokes are a little bit more, I would say, modern esque than
Sure.
what you would see in like the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, it is definitely an interesting blend where, like, the first issue, after I read it, I was like, I liked it, but it kind of wasn't like what I was expecting. But then, honestly, as I read more of it, I got like more and more into like the style of
Hmm.
what it was doing. And yeah, it did some really neat things, which I definitely appreciated. Uh, as we went through each one being their own standalone story, as you talked about, it was really cool where a bunch of those stories went to individually, but then also for each one being single story like issues, they each told a really good like character driven story,
Yeah.
really, with each one too. Like I found myself surprised in a couple of the issues how hard some of it hit for it just being like what it was able to achieve, I think, for one issue.
Yeah, no, I think the character work is something that is really good in this. Like, they really do feel like friends, that I feel like you don't And you get little nice stops in their friendship. And I
Mhm.
think most people think of Hal Jordan as the test pilot for Ferris Air and stuff, but there are he had many jobs, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that this highlights as it takes place in these random things, is how he is more of a it's almost like this like odd couple relationship where Barry, they make jokes about this, is like same job, same woman, same stuff going on, right? Like same villains he's facing. Nothing is changing for him. While for Hal, it is changing every. He's constantly uprooting his life, moving town to town, and he kind of plays it off for jokes sometimes, but like there are people like Alan Scott who get through to him a bit of like, hey, you know don't just run on any time anything gets hard, right?
Mhm.
And then um how many girlfriends he has had, how many things continue to change for him. That kind of became one of my, I think, favorite bits as we're going through these. Again, like this is my first
Mhm.
time reading it in like 2 years. But being able to forget some of this stuff and then be like, oh, that's what job he has now, and kind of wondering like, what's he gonna have in the next one? I think was something that was really fun. But you get the deeper stuff too, like we talked about. There is a story in issue 6 that takes place after the death of Iris West, very famous comic story. That uh, that this story takes place after, and Barry is very different in it. He's having trouble moving on, and in fact, he actually is kind of confusing. Um, he's kind of confusing Carol for Iris, right? Like he's saying we'll get her back for Hal, but he's saying like they have Iris, and it's like no, it's Carol. Like he is just in so deep at that point of his loss and grief for Iris that he's not really thinking straight. Also, just a very good. This is also what I think Mark Waid does well, is the continuity fixes. So when they're referring to the other Star Sapphire, it's because there was another comic book character named that, and then he
Yeah.
kind of makes it fit into the continuity of being like, well, they both did exist, and
Sure.
this one is now, taking over uh, Carol, and then kind of doing those continuity fixes. I think is just um, really cool
Yeah,
and
that was
fun.
really interesting. I never realized that there was an older Sapphire, and so I thought that was a cool way to learn about that character for me. Uh, as well as I never heard of the villain that was in the first issue. I'm trying to remember who that was, but I remember the villain like appeared, and I'm like, no idea who that is, but that's interesting.
Oh, like the Shadow guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, what was his name?
I know. Now that we're looking at it, it's like, where is that again? But yeah, no, there are all these like weird shadows and stuff, which is interesting. Because there was like a main thing behind it or something.
Yeah. They
Uh,
don't. Yeah, it doesn't say in this timeline. Let me see if it gave a name. But yeah, kind of a
yeah,
dark start too, where
yeah,
he's taking over this guy on the plane and then just makes the guy like kill himself. Like
yeah.
just
It's crazy. Yeah, I was trying to
very.
remember. I see the guy here because there's like
Oh
the
yeah,
guy that
yeah. It's
makes all the
this
stuff.
guy.
Constrictor.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with her
Yeah.
with him either. Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting, and so I think it's a cool way to introduce these older characters and how things were in a modern way. It's something that I do like about
Yeah, it
not
felt
just
very Silver Age,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
science fiction esque story in this first one.
yeah. No, I liked it because it just straight up does feel like how those older stories felt from back then, like straight up to how a lot of them talked with each other, to the way the bad guys are beaten. It just straight up felt like is something written or ripped right from those eras, which is cool.
Yeah, did you have a favorite issue of the 6 as you were reading them that you were like, "Oh, this is the one that's more my speed," or
Um, it's between 2. Uh, Although now that I'm kinda thinking about it, I think I know which one I'd say. The runner up would be the one where it's, um, the the ones where they were with the JSA. So you got the
yes,
Jay
issue 3,
Garrick
yep.
and, Alan Scott there, where they're each, like, teaching, you know, the older ones teaching the younger versions of their heroes or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool. I really did enjoy that. But I think my favorite one, just because I thought it was really cool with how it tied into the grand continuity, was I enjoyed Green Lantern together, or not Green Lantern, Green Arrow,
Oh,
because
yes.
we have the whole, we know of the iconic Green Lantern and Green Arrow,
Yes.
stories together, and we do often a lot of times think of those two characters together. So to explore how exactly Barry and Hal's relationship was at that time, I thought was really interesting. Uh,
Yeah, because like, I think what is interesting, right? We know that they are friends, right? Like, this is something
mhm,
that people know. Like, okay, Green Lantern and Flash are friends.
mhm,
But they don't have as many, I would say, like but I think if you're gonna ask somebody, "What is the team up comic that has Green Lantern?" Almost most people are gonna say Green Arrow, Green Lantern,
sure. Yeah.
right? So, when you have this story of following these 2 characters, having to fit that in there, the way he was able to just be like, "Alright, we're gonna fit in a little story here that has Green Arrow in it," to kind of as a nod of Green Arrow, Green Lantern, and just at that time, that's what was being made, and, we'll have, kind of Barry's point of view as well on a very timely issue as well with today,
Mhm.
but, like, it is
Sure.
for something written in 1999, I think that's very interesting. So,
Sure,
if
definitely.
people go and read issue 4, that's a fun little thing. Um, but yeah, having another like JLA member in there too, and just kind of how those three are interacting, and you know, having to team up and put their differences aside to take
Yeah.
down a corrupt mayor and a
Mhm.
corrupt administration and everything. I thought was
It
really
was
cool.
it was interesting. It particularly allowed us to see the how different Flash and Green Arrow are, you know, with using Green Lantern as the link between them, and so is just a unique way to explore their relationships that I really liked, and so but yeah, those 2 issues in particular were the ones that just, like, stood out to me, since yeah, I just thought the relationships that they explored were unique in those. What about you? Did you have a favorite one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a really big fan of issue 2 with Kid Flash becoming Kid Lantern
That was
and
really cool.
having Mirror Master and Black Hand teaming up,
Yes.
and um, this kind of thing where Wally is my favorite Flash. Okay, so I think that's probably plays a role in it as well.
Okay.
But um, getting to see more of that relationship between the two of them, like Hal Jordan is saying how much it seems like he really loves being an uncle uh to Barry, I
Yeah.
mean, to Wally, and always talking about him, like, at the beginning dinner scene while they're waiting for Barry, who is, as always, late. Like, that was, I think, a really fun dynamic because, then they also have to try to sneak away, and they're like, "Oh, we'll take Wally back to the apartment so that way they can
Yeah.
go save the day," and then, they end up bringing him back, and they're like, "Why did you never drop him off?" And they're just kinda like, "Oh, yeah," like, they don't have an answer for that, but so I think that one's really fun, and I also think the one where Barry gets taken in issue 5 to by the Guardians to do a job that the Green Lanterns can't do because
Yeah.
of that like little golden sun that's in there powered by Sinestro. It like amplifies their fearlessness, and they just become super reckless. Like that issue opens up with this Green Lantern just absolutely being dumb and like, this thing has taken out
Yeah.
8 other ones and I'm gonna destroy it by myself, and just
Right.
flies into it and dies, you know?
A little bit of a dark opening, and so,
Yeah,
but yeah,
there's like
no,
that in a few of these.
that's that. You know what? That is true. I did, both those issues too. We had great villain reveals. Well, I mean, I guess you knew who Black Hand and Mirror Master at the beginning, but I did think it was really cool to explore the older versions of them, especially of how we think of each of their characters now, especially how different Black Hand is now.
Yes, that's the thing,
Because
like,
it's
he's a joke in this one, they're like,
yeah,
"Do you ever say something serious?" Like,
yeah,
he's always speaking in cliches or whatever they said, like, he's not what we think of Black Hand now, so that was,
yeah,
kind of fun. Same thing with Sinestro, like, seeing him in his more classic blue and
yeah,
black suit instead of what everybody thinks of him as the yellow, Lantern
yeah.
Corps, so that is what most people go to. But what's funny is I have a book over here that I've been reading my son. Um, it's called My First Book of Supervillains, and it is
Okay.
DC supervillains, and it's just kind of like these people do bad stuff, and then it's like the heroes do good stuff. Like
Yeah,
it's just to kind of teach right and wrong and all
sure.
this, but with the comic lens, and that Sinestro in that one is that kind of older art style with the black and blue.
Yeah,
So seeing it again in this, I was like, oh, that's really cool that it's like
yeah.
this more classic Sinestro.
It's good points about both Black Hand and Sinestro. Is like this comic came out at a time before the big stuff that Jeff Johns did with both their
Yes. Yep.
characters, as well as Green Lantern and
Big
Flash as well.
reimagining, Green
Because
Lantern
this,
Rebirth.
yeah, and so it's interesting because I could have imagined a bit of demand of this back then because when that came out, they were dead for over a decade, and having them back in the classic feel just seemed like a cool way to have them back for a little bit. Because even after this came out, they didn't come back for like another 5 years, I think. And
Yeah,
so,
that's kind of similar to just the heroes themselves. Like really, like think
mhm,
to some of these opening things in here, right? Are these opening sentences are like, hey, before Wally West took over, before
yeah.
Kyle Rayner, there was
Oh
another Flash and
yeah,
Green Lantern. Like,
time and color.
so this was like the time where these characters were kind of on the sideline,
Yeah,
and this was probably the only way to get new stories of them at the time. So
yeah,
this probably was, people at that time that were either not as so I think the story works two ways, right? Like this works in a way of your introduction to Barry and Hal, since they've been out of comics for so long at that point, where you could be like,
sure,
oh, like that's cool. I get to read these stories of these, original, even though they're not original, right? They're the second ones pretty much of these characters with because of Jay Garrick and Alan Scott.
sure.
But
Yeah,
you know, at that point, you've had so many stories of these newer lanterns, newer flashes but also for the people that were around in those times that were like, man, I really miss Barry, I really miss Hal, and then they're like, oh, here's a cool story
yeah.
that I can kind of fill in those gaps, because at that time I don't think they knew that they were bringing them back. So it
No,
was kind of like that's why he has to go through and be like, this story takes place at this point, and this story
yeah.
takes place at this point, because they were not around.
Yeah, no, it was just interesting because when I was reading it, I didn't fully realize until after I read the first issue
Yeah.
when I like looked at the dates and everything coming out, and it's just interesting when you like put your head in like the time it was like came out and knowing more of the context behind it. I think it's one of those things that just helps evaluate the story if you kind of know what was going on at that time. And so, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, I thought that was cool. Having that been, back then when comic characters actually stayed dead for a long time, unlike now,
Well,
it's
yeah, you have that what the saying is, nobody other than in comics, nobody but Uncle Ben stays dead. That used
pretty
to
much.
that line used to include Jason Todd and Bucky Barnes as well. And those two have come back. So
Both of them
like
come
it
back,
has
yeah.
had to be Because I think I had read something from like an older time where people were like, "Oh, the only people that stay dead are Uncle Ben, Bucky Barnes, and Jason Todd."
Yeah.
And nowadays, that saying literally is just Uncle Ben because they keep
Yeah.
bringing everybody else back.
The only hero I can think of on top of my head that's actually stayed dead is the original Captain Marvel. But
Oh yeah,
other than
Marvel.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, Marvel, yeah. So other than that, it's like I can't think of anybody else that's actually stayed dead.
Yeah, I mean, we also have the issue nowadays where they don't even let a run go longer than like 30 issues before they renumber them
If
again or
even,
something.
if even, you're getting lucky with the 30 a lot of
Yes.
times now too. But yeah, no, that's a whole other thing going
Yeah,
on
that's
there.
frustrating.
But yeah, no, interesting how the times change, and it was cool to see how this one was a cool period piece. I definitely think it uh I would say aged well for the most part. Like you could definitely tell as something that was like older written. Like those late 90s was an interesting time in comics because that's when
Mhm.
it was an interesting like transition of like I mean this comic has a great mix of both, but just in general that era was when they were starting to get more darker and more into the more modern style, into what we're used to now that like the early 2000s really kicked off into how we know today. That's I feel like has largely remained the same since then. And so,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's just interesting.
these I would say like this is not one where you end up I would say like rolling your eyes. Like like if you go to read some of these older issues, right? Like the amount that the hero talks to themselves and is narrating what they're doing
Yeah.
or or saying silly stuff that you're like, okay, like yeah, that's the 60s for you or that's the
Yeah.
50s for you. While these stories take place back then, it doesn't really feel like you're reading that. And I feel like a relatively quick read as well for a lot of these stories.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, uh, but again, I would also say the art is a big plus for me as well with Barry Kitson. I really
Yeah.
like their art.
No, it was a good way to make it feel like a little bit of an updated version of the older stuff too. Like it had that older feel,
Yeah,
as you mentioned, their old costumes and he just had an art style that worked. I know Mark Waid and they're essentially the same creative team also worked on JLA Year One, which I haven't read, but I saw that referenced at the beginning.
yeah,
So, um, part of the reason they did this book was because of the success off of that. So curious to see is like I wasn't really aware of either of those books. Well, I think I've heard of JLA what year one, but like I didn't fully realize what it was. And so it's cool to see. It's just interesting to see that like we know of Mark Waid doing this stuff a lot now, as we mentioned before, of him filling in the gaps. But I didn't realize he did it 25 years ago as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
And so it just really shows his passion, which is really cool. Just he really knows his background knowledge. He loves getting into it all, which is just he just does a great job with it all. I really like it. And so cool stuff for sure.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else with this. I did really like where it ended. You mentioned with about it being in crisis and
yeah,
the big red skies there and everything. I liked how it tied right into their eventual fates where most comic readers would know right where that leads into, which is just that was a cool nod into wrap up into a nice little bow because you did get to see how their friendship evolved a little bit. Like from that first issue, they weren't that close of friends. Just like when
hmm
they're just kind of beginning to like be together a little bit. And so it was cool to see their evolution throughout. Definitely felt like there's a passage of time between each issue. So
yeah. I mean, we learned that like, and that's what helps too, right? Like when he's picking where to put these, so it doesn't feel the same thing all the time.
mhm,
He is picking areas where Hal has a different job, he has a different girlfriend,
mhm,
he is doing he's in a different town or whatever. Barry, we see those changes a little less because they, like I said, they make that joke of same job, same
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
But you see from, issue 1 of them just kind of hanging out to issue 2, he's with Iris and hanging out with Wally, to like later referencing being married, to later, like I said, losing Iris. Like you do get to see a track for Barry.
Mhm.
It's just not as, I would say, like overt of changes, or as
Yeah.
like big changes of what Hal's doing every every year or whatever. I
Mhm.
mean, because some of these issues are only like I think I read, like, what I said, 68 was one of them, 69 was one of them.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
they're spread out within like 12 issues, and he's got like a wildly different job,
Right.
wildly different girl. And he even mentions like, I almost married this one girl. You didn't even get a chance to meet her, like, and Barry's like, what? Uh, so I think that's another thing I feel like we don't let comics do a lot nowadays. They kind of go back to the status quo a lot sooner.
Sure.
So like if you were doing one of these for like I don't know, like Spider-Man
Mhm.
and like Batman, right? Uh or Batman and Superman,
Mhm.
there would not be as many like mile markers, because specifically for those two characters, they really try to keep them at their core the same stuff. Like you would have slight
Mhm.
changes, right? Like, oh,
Sure.
we now have Damian, or we're on this Robin. And then for Clark, you would have like, oh, the death of Superman, or uh the having Jonathan. But like there's not like a lot of like big changes to their lives, I feel like, especially nowadays, because they just always want people to be able to pick up a comic and not be lost. So
Sure.
I do think that's probably one thing that really works in the advantage of this story, is that each issue has a very distinct feel,
Yeah,
and a
definitely.
different stage of these two's relationship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool to see how spread out about time. Something that I was just thinking about while you were talking about all that was how a bunch of these stories that are set in the past, they're usually not spread out in the way this one is. It's usually all just anytime we do get a blaster in the past that's a modern retelling, it's all usually within just one time period and not,
Yeah,
you know,
not like spread out across
not spread out. Yeah.
it's like, here's a 6 issue arc from March of that year,
Right.
instead of like we're doing one from this year, that year, and this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it was cool. It definitely brings in some unique flavors while also being able to tell like those classic stories again, it's enjoyable. It's always fun to read comics throughout the different eras, and so it's definitely a very fun read. Um, one random thing I wanted to ask
Yeah.
is, do you know what the heck the starfish thing is that was on Hal Jordan's shoulder?
No, yeah, what is his name, they say?
I don't know. I was just thinking about that. I was just looking through it. I was like, oh right. I was curious about what that is because anytime I think of a little starfish now, I think of Jaro.
Starro. That is what I think of.
Well, then there's the miniature version, Jaro, that later
Oh, yeah,
came
yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah.
and so that's why I was like, I know it wasn't a thing yet, and so because that's like a way later thing, like that's a character that's more like the last decade. So it was like, huh,
Yeah, what does he call this thing? It
I don't
is
know.
I'm on the issue right now. At the very end of this issue, he says, "Itty, itty, like itty bitty." Um, I wonder if it is like just. I'm assuming it's some alien thing he met from doing this. He is a. Uh,
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I'll have to look
okay,
that
so
up.
here it is.
Oh,
He is called a Aries or something. In his youth, he befriended Hal Jordan,
interesting.
joined him on many adventures until he was apparently killed. He actually transformed into adulthood from a small starfish to a huge gas-like humanoid.
What? It's crazy. Yeah, see, like, it's just there's some fun references like that around in these, which are cool.
Yeah.
That are just kind of subtle because it was all those things that like it was noticeable that it was there, but it wasn't in your face of, hey, that's what this thing is. It just felt natural of, yeah, that's what was going on at the time.
Yeah, he
So,
first appeared in 1975. Denny O'Neil and Mike Grell created Itty.
huh,
So,
that's interesting.
yeah.
Pretty cool. No, that's interesting. The more you know.
Yeah, there's not a big like a big thing about him on the DC fandom page. So,
Yeah,
it is a very deep cut, I guess, for
yeah,
Mark Waid, and that's what he enjoys doing, I guess.
absolutely. No, that was cool. I didn't know. No. But yeah, no, lots of fun little details and stuff. Is there any other like details or stuff you had in mind that you want to talk about?
Um, I don't think so.
I feel like we've hit like all the main things. I can't think if there's anything. I didn't see anything else that I wanted to specifically talk about.
Yeah, I would just say if people have not read this and they are listening to this or watching this, give it
Yeah,
a read. I think it's a lot of fun. If you can find like read it on the DC app or whatever. But
yeah,
um, if you really like it and you can find this deluxe edition, it has a really great forward by Mark
yes.
Waid, and then it also has really great notes at the back of like
So
notes from the
yes,
two writers co-writing together and like read it going back and forth with notes like
well,
all
that's
that kind of
cool.
stuff is really fun.
So the what's cool is the higher tier of the DC app includes
Oh,
like
it has
the
that. Yes.
collections. I don't think it has all the stuff at the end. You said notes at the end.
Yeah, it's like letters between uh Payer and Wade just kind of like going back and forth on like what they think. Like there's a thing here, it says like recurring bits. Hal is
Huh.
incredibly nice to poor Barry, maybe suggesting a foot race for their sports competition, something Hal knows he will lose. Like uh, stuff like that. And the girlfriend bit, Iris is dead. Who is Hal with? There's just like stuff going back and forth that they're kind of like talking about, and that's another thing too. The other bit throughout this is the recurring bit of Hal having to constantly get money from Barry that he like never repays, right? Like
Mhm.
even when he wants to pay for the dinner in one of the first issues, he's like, "Oh, I got it," and then the girls walk away, and then he's like, "Barry, I actually need the money. Like, I'll pay you back," and
Yeah.
just constantly in here where he's like, "I need to borrow $20
Yeah.
or $50."
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was funny how those things just keep on going on. I definitely enjoyed that. Um, yeah, if you have the DC app, higher subscription, you can view the collected edition that it sounds like has everything in that except for the letters at the end. But
Interesting.
I was able to see like the timeline and stuff before I read it, and so it was interesting to go through that. And so,
Yeah, I
but
forgot
yeah,
that they added that stuff with the higher tier.
they did, yeah. Yeah, no, I like how they DC's app has gotten better over the years. So,
It
but
has, yeah.
yeah,
I enjoy it a lot. I subbed to both that and Marvel
yeah. Well, the thing I
Unlimited.
love about both of them is being able to go back and read older comics or ones that are out of print.
Yeah.
And that's the case on this one. You can't buy as available. This one had a reprinting in like 2019 or
Yep.
2020 around
Yep.
there. But as of when I was just looking at it, like those copies aren't as easy to find.
Yeah, so I'm
Um,
glad I bought it when I did. I bought it 2
yeah,
years ago,
funny how
and,
that happened.
I think it was, like I said, like 15 or less, and it was I believe Amazon had one of those things that says, like, only this many left,
Oh, that'll get you.
and I was like, "Hey, this one is from, like, 2019. Who knows how long they?" Because for a while, I was collecting the Flash Rebirth comics. Not like Flash Rebirth, but like the 2016
Era. Yeah,
DC
yeah,
Rebirth
yeah, yeah.
reboot. And I was missing um volume 12, Death of the Speed Force. And it was something that came out in like 2020, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was looking throughout 2023, because it was a volume 12, they don't get as reprinted as often as like volume ones.
Right.
And it was going for like $100 on eBay.
That's insane.
So, luckily, I did find a really good deal for it and just like splurged and spent like $40 on a $20
You're right.
thing. But then I got lucky again because volume 15, which was Finish Line, was also out of print and was going for insane prices. I go to Pittsburgh for comic book day, like visiting a friend. I go to the comic shop and there it is in that local comic shop I happened to Google. And for the price on the cover, $15. I did not have to
Heck
spend
yes.
an insane amount of money to get it, and it just lucked out. But yeah, some of these volumes go for insane money, even for newer comics. So sometimes I guess that higher tier is worth it on unlimited or
Yeah.
infinite, whatever one that one is.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it here. They do have all of those there that you were just talking about. So
Yeah.
that's nice. I like it. I like the availability of what the app gives you to read now, and so that's the main reason I keep the comic subscriptions. I prefer physical. I like having them all piled up, but sometimes there's a story you really want to read and you can't find it, and that's the place to do it at. So
it's also good to just, like I said, like read it on the app first, see if it's something you're gonna like.
this is true too. Yeah,
And then if you do like it, find it physically.
that's
Because
true.
I used to just probably buy, I would go to like Ollie's Bargain Outlet or whatever, and they'd have
Oh
like
my god, yeah.
trade paperbacks for like $3, and I would just buy some, and I'm like, those are steals. But also sometimes you're like, maybe I should have read this beforehand because maybe it's not one I'm looking for. Or maybe,
Sure.
or like your collection just gets too big. So sometimes you gotta be selective.
You can never be, never have a too big collection. I refuse to, think that's what's going on with the big piles back there. So anyway, but no, absolutely. However, you can read this, DC being a great option. I think DC Universe Infinite being a great option, which I endorse using both the digital apps and supporting your local comic store. Sometimes you
Yeah.
could be surprised about the older stuff that's just sitting there that they have that, sometimes, you don't know if they have something unless you're actually looking for it. So
Right.
just how the thing is then there's shelves and shelves of comics. So, but yeah, this has been a fun time talking to you and having you on,
Yeah. Thank
talking
you.
about Flash and Green Lantern, talking about two of our favorite heroes teaming up into Brave and the Bold. See, that was another thing. I found that tag, like the name of it, interesting because like most people when they think of it, they think of like the Batman team up stuff, and
Yep.
this didn't include Batman at all. And so,
Well,
it
because
wasn't-
the original, like what, Brave and the Bold, was just random team ups. Like
yeah,
that's how Justice League, I think, started, right? So, um, I did like that title was this, but and now everybody, when they say Brave and the Bold, there was the cartoon that was
yeah,
named that as well, and then there was also the James Gunn movie, the DCU version of Batman, currently has the subtitle of Brave and the Bold. So of course everybody is always thinking of Batman. So
yeah, definitely.
but yeah,
So, man, how cool to see that title used how it was originally, giving ode to how things were, which is cool, which I enjoyed. So,
yeah.
but yeah, awesome stuff. Where can the people find you at?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. At Soups and Sabers is where you get a lot of my comic takes and nerd stuff. And you can also just search on Spotify Soups and Sabers. You'll find us there, or on YouTube. We originally had like 4 different podcasts: a Star Wars podcast, a DC podcast, a Marvel podcast, and a fantasy based podcast. And we just said, let's just put them into one. And
Right.
that's what we did. So we did Soups and Sabers, which talks about superheroes and things with sabers, lightsabers,
There you go.
regular sabers, and any nerd stuff really is what we're talking
Absolutely.
about. So, we just finished Peacemaker season 2, and we have some cool stuff coming up in the off season here between projects. But and then also I launched a Flash podcast talking about the Arrowverse, like I said. So that is called Enter Flash Time, and that is at enter_flash time on Twitter.
Excellent. I'll make sure to put the links to all that stuff down below. And so make sure you go give Jordan here a follow, subscribe, and all that stuff. It's great talking to you here. Got lots of stuff coming out on the Dingus Den as well. Let's see here. In particular, as this should be out in just a day or two after recording, that I have the debut of Before the Cape coming out, which is like your Flash show. It's going to be us going through Smallville.
One of my favorite
And
shows,
I
Smallville.
have never watched, and neither has my good friend Andrew. So we're
Okay.
kind of like we're co-hosting that, as well as somebody else that loves Smallville. So it's going to be a fun show. If you ever want to join, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, and also we're putting together a long Halloween comic read through. For Batman Day, I did a fun thing where I we did a live stream celebration where I got some people together and we did voiceovers for the first issue of Batman Hush and then the first issue of James Tinian's Detective Comics run. And those were a bunch of fun. I sooner or later will have out the individual videos of those so you don't have to go back to the stream to find it. And then we're going to be doing the long Halloween, and we're wanting to have that released on Halloween itself. So hoping that'll be out. And then other than that, I'm going to be having some other comic reviews and stuff like this coming up. Gonna try to make these a little more frequent. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. Or at least try to have something every week. So we'll see. And so yeah, but without further ado, thank you so much for joining, Jordan. Great having you here. And until next time, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Laters, everybody. Bye.